¿Qué tal, chicos? Bienvenidos. Soy Juani. Are you currently at that beginner or intermediate conversational level in Spanish? And moving on from that, how can you actually tell if you are a beginner or not? And if you are, how can you bridge that gap and get to that intermediate level in the language? Now, in my opinion, a clear indicator as to whether you are still at that beginner conversational level or not is whether you can use the verb haber as an auxiliary in Spanish in the past tense. So what does that mean exactly? Let me show you with a few examples. I have studied a lot lately. Últimamente he estudiado mucho. Últimamente he estudiado mucho. I've already eaten, thanks. Ya he comido, gracias. Ya he comido, gracias. I haven't seen Juan recently. No he visto a Juan recientemente. No he visto a Juan recientemente. Before my trip, I had never gone or I had never been to Mexico. Antes de mi viaje, nunca había ido a México. Antes de mi viaje, nunca había ido a México. After looking at those examples, can you clearly see why this particular tense can be a great indicator as to whether your conversational skills are more at that beginner or intermediate level in the language? Because this particular tense can really open up your Spanish conversation grammatically. Now, if you're not sure how to use this particular tense, don't worry, we're going to break it all down now. First of all, I think a great way to get a good understanding on how these different tenses work is to really go behind the scenes and understand how the grammar works. I think that gives you a good foundation to start from. Now let's start with the verb haber as an auxiliary. How do we conjugate it? As I've said in previous videos, a good place to start from is just focusing on the yo and the do form, because those two tenses or those two forms are the most beneficial in a conversation. So the first one is yo, and the do form is do, as. Do, as. Remembering that the letter H in Spanish is always silent. Moving on, now that we know how to conjugate haber, the next question is, how do we conjugate the second verb that haber is assisting in this particular tense? It's very simple. Think of it in English when we add the ed onto the end of a verb. So we do that in Spanish by doing this. For AR regular verbs, we take off the AR ending and put ado. And for ER and IR verbs, we remove the ending and put ido. Very simple. Let me give you a few quick examples. I have trained or I've trained. He entrenado. I have learned or I've learned. He aprendido. As you can see there, when we break it down, it's not too difficult, isn't it? So if I were to say in Spanish, I have never gone to Spain or I have never been to Spain, I could say, nunca he ido a España. Nunca he ido a España. Or if I were to say, I still haven't trained this week, I could say, todavía no he entrenado esta semana. Todavía no he entrenado esta semana. As you can see from those last two examples, the words nunca and todavía are very useful with this particular construction. And as you can see, we've conjugated the verb haber in the yo form, yo he, and then we've simply added on the ending onto the second verb that the verb haber is assisting. It should be starting to make a little bit more sense now, so now is a good time to give you a few exercises. So as per normal, I'm going to give you a phrase in English and I want you to translate it for me into Spanish using the verb haber. I'll give you 10 seconds, however, as always, if you do need more time, feel free to hit pause on the video. So how would you say in Spanish, I have never tried paella. I have never tried paella. This time you'd say, nunca he probado la paella. Nunca he probado la paella. Let's try another one. How would you say in Spanish, you have helped me a lot? You have helped me a lot. This time you'd say, me has ayudado mucho. Me has ayudado mucho. This time, conjugating the verb haber in the tú form, and it's a little bit more complicated grammatically because we have to put me at the start. So you have helped me a lot. Good job, everyone. Now, obviously, it can get a lot more complicated when you start to use irregular and reflexive verbs. However, this is a good place to start from. It's also a good segue to jump into the pluscuamperfecto, which is describing a past event before another past event has occurred. For example, I still hadn't eaten when you called me. Todavía no había comido cuando me llamaste. Todavía no había comido cuando me llamaste. As you can see from that example, you're really starting to advance your conversational skills when you start to use the pluscuamperfecto in Spanish. However, just start off with the basics that we went over today. Try some of these examples in your next few conversations that you have in the language. And as always, if you've got any other questions or queries, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or a question in the comment section below. I'd also appreciate it if you did get any value from this video, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button and subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Hasta pronto.